Hi there, my name is Lydia, and I had toxic mold for about 3 years, and it was debilitating. And something I have never talked about is that during that time, and before that, I believe that I had something called orthorexia. Now, orthorexia is this, I don't know if I can say this word on YouTube, but it's an ED, an eating problem. Eating, you can fill in the blanks. Maybe I can say it later in the video. But, before toxic mold, I was vegan. I was vegan for a very, very long time. I want to say about 8 years. And even before that, I was always, I guess, very concerned with health. Very concerned with health. Very concerned with eating well. And any time I would come to new information about how there are dyes in our foods, or some food is toxic, or something in our foods are toxic, I would take that so personally, so seriously, and completely remove that from my life, my diet, my whatever. And we didn't always have a lot of money growing up. And so, there was a lot of times where it was hard to afford a lot of healthy, wonderful, good foods. Especially when prices would raise and it was hard to buy healthy food that was sustaining. And it was rough. I did definitely notice myself starting to lose weight quite rapidly. And there were definitely moments where I scared myself because people would say, like, you're really thin. You think you really should eat more. Don't you want to eat more? And, the foods often offered to me, because we didn't have enough money all the time to buy the healthiest foods, when foods that were lower quality in my mind were offered to me, I resisted them. And being vegan just piled on top of that made my foods available to me very limited, very small. And I did buy a lot of packaged vegan foods, which also aren't very good for me. And I kind of had that in my mind too, that battle of, like, these packaged foods, they are vegan, and so they follow this restriction, this barrier that I put over myself. But at the same time, those aren't even that good for me. And I had this ideal of how I wanted to eat and live. And even being vegan wasn't enough for me. My end goal was to be a raw vegan, which, there are a lot of people who can do both. A lot of people who can sustain being vegan, a lot of people who can sustain being raw vegan. But, I can't, debate that. I don't have experience with what that looks like, but I do know that a lot of the people who are raw vegan live in tropical climates, and they have these bountiful fruits and vegetables ready and available to them at any moment's notice, and copious amounts of organic, fresh produce at their disposal. And I was not in that position, And I would scare myself sometimes. Like I was saying, I would scare myself because, there would be moments where I would weigh myself and I was noticing that I was getting scarily thin. And I think I had a very disassociative mind where I would look in the mirror and I didn't notice that I was thin. I didn't notice that I was sickly looking by any means, And there were a couple times that I did pass out, and that was not a good time, And now my body knows what that's like to pass out, and that's not fun. And then when I talked to my doctor about what was going on with my body, because I was started to gain weight quite rapidly and experience all of these slew of symptoms, and we came to the conclusion that I was experiencing toxic mold. She started to coach me through how to heal myself. And one of the main things was that I needed to eat more. I was shocked. I wasn't trying to necessarily restrict my calorie intake, but I was just so detached from it. Especially since I grew up being an overweight kid. And so I was told a lot of my life, well, you should probably just eat when you're hungry. Only eat when you're hungry. That's all you should do, is only eat when you're hungry. And it's like, well, when your body doesn't know what hungry is. And then on top of that, I do suspect that I have autism. I have yet to be evaluated, but and that I do think might be a factor in why I was so detached from my body. But like, I was so detached from how I was feeling at any given moment, but I didn't even know how to take care of myself. Only eat when you're hungry meant I'm hardly ever eating, because I didn't feel hungry. I didn't feel the normal rhythm of hunger cues, And so then when I was with my doctor and she told me, like, I do suspect toxic mold, and here, do this mold test, and the mold test came back and I did have toxic mold. A big part of her regimen, a big part of her healing regimen for me was that she suggested that I start eating more by double. I was eating less than 1,000 calories a day. It was not good. And I didn't even realize. I had no concept. And she told me that I should probably increase my protein intake. Now, at this point, I had already experienced such severe brain fog. It was so hard for me to think about how to live, how to survive, let alone adding double the food to my diet when I was already struggling to just maintain what I was. And so in that moment, I had to come to a conclusion. I had to come to some sort of realization that maybe it'd be better if I just added meat to my diet. Unless I want to just consume so many beans and then try to figure out how to add healthy, wonderful calories to my diet. And so many of them, I was putting limits and restrictions on myself. And so I did. I added meat to my diet, and that was not an easy decision. It took a lot of thinking. It took a lot of praying about it, because it wasn't just, I think what people don't understand about veganism is that it is more than just a diet. It is also like a spiritual belief for many people. It is a morality debate, even for a lot of people. And so that was really a big step for me, a very, very big step for me. And with that, no longer being vegan and not even vegetarian, I just, at that point, I felt like I was just withering away, not just due to my diet, but also due to toxic mold, largely due to toxic mold. My main focus was my health. My main focus was getting myself up to normal. And I always had it in my head of like, I will probably always go back to being vegan. But now, after experiencing just how bad toxic mold was and how eating consistently 2,000 calories and enough protein and enough solid, good food, it was interesting because even though I was suffering from toxic mold, I felt like my body for the first time was starting to align itself. And now being outside of toxic mold and detoxing from it and And healing from all of that, I do feel like my body's starting to understand what it means to function normally for the first time. And our bodies, this is what my doctor said, and it always stuck with me, is that our bodies have an amazing way of healing themselves. They know what normality is, and so they can adjust accordingly. But as of recently, I still consider myself very crunchy, very crunchy. I don't think after learning about all of the toxins in our food, all of the toxins in our daily lives, I don't think that that's ever something that I can just ignore. So I would consider myself quite crunchy still, quite holistic, quite natural. But another lesson that I have learned more recently was that I still was putting restrictions on myself, like oftentimes over my health. Because I've been eating very well consistently, adding the meat. And a big part of that journey was prayer and learning to pray over my food, learning to pray over the meat and the dairy and the animal products of all kinds that I consume. That has been a game changer for me. But it was almost like, okay, that I allowed, but I didn't allow the same thought process for all foods. Like, I still had these restrictions over some areas of my life, over some foods that I was consuming. And so recently, or now, I don't know, a couple times in 2024, I experienced some poverty, some real struggle, financial struggles. And the only food that was available to me was from the food bank. And it was like I was so thankful for that food, but at the same time, I had these severe food aversions. And it was really, really hard not to feel this extreme depression while consuming a lot of the foods that were given to me as a blessing. These foods were given to me as a gift. And I believe that actually is a passage in the Bible, or a verse in the Bible, that says, like, if food is given to you as a gift, it is considered a blessing, or something like that. I should have thought beforehand to write that down, but I still had these aversions, to a lot of food. Like, okay, I accepted eggs into my diet, and that has been a game changer. That's been really good. That's been a good consistency since being vegan. But how about eggs that aren't, cage free? How about the eggs that aren't, that aren't taken care of as well as these farm fresh eggs that you are so used to? And even though morally I still feel very, like, I know that that's not okay, the way that these chickens have been taken care of and these eggs have been raised. This is just one example, but even though I still know that, I have that knowledge, I do feel like, the Lord, Yahweh, our God, has been putting that on my heart to just trust in Him in a new layer, because I had to trust in Him that this was the right decision, even though it went against everything that I thought I knew when I started incorporating meat into my diet. And then this time I had to trust Him again to bless this food that, in my mind, with all of this knowledge that I have consumed, I deemed as wrong. And even if it is wrong, even though it is not the healthiest for me, or not the best for me, to give that to Him, that He will bless it. To give that to Him, that He will make that okay for me, because that is what was put before me to eat. And at those moments, it was that or starve again. It was that to get rid of my food aversions and to just trust Him that it will be a blessing to me, or not eat at all. And I was starting to notice myself not eating at all. And my body was resorting back to a lot of the ways that I was before. And it just was this moment where He was trying to call me for higher. That, yeah, when you have more, you can do more. When I bless you with more, you can do more, and you know to do more. And that's a beautiful thing, that I have bestowed this knowledge upon you to do more. But do you trust me enough? Do you have faith in me enough to consume the foods that are before you, even if they aren't the best quality? Do you have enough faith to know that I will bless those still to your body, to give you health and strength? Because these were given as a gift. These are these foods from a food bank, these foods from a neighbor, these foods from wherever it is, They're there to serve me. They're there as a blessing to serve me. And so it really took this moment of newfound strength, I guess, to give that to him, and to just have faith that they would be a blessing to me. And that when he blesses me with more, I still do more. I don't go back. I don't revert back to how I was when I was very young and I didn't know anything. But I also accept what's in front of me. I think that was a huge lesson that I had to learn in 2024. And yeah, and you can still be crunchy. I think, in fact, it makes you more crunchy to take care of your body. Even when you know these things, it takes true knowledge of what serves health the most to accept the foods that are in front of you. I think that's really what being being almond, being granola, I think that's really what that is. It's like, yeah, when you have more, you do more. Of course, Sort of like with water, like I think a lot of us crunchies, we know about, fluoride in the water, and we got our Berkey water filters, and we care a lot about that. We try not to drink the water in the system, but at the same time, if you weren't around your Berkey water system, if your Berkey water system broke and you couldn't get a new one right away, I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to not drink any water through that time, And I think my old mindset would have been to restrict more water, maybe not have no water, but to limit my water. Instead of just trusting that it's a blessing. Instead of just trusting that it can be blessed. You either have that faith or you don't. And this year I have learned to exercise that faith. So I thought I'd share that.